If you're a parent like me, it may have been a long, exhausting day for you too, with the kids not in school, a snow day, so I couldn't do my usual 11 a.m. Well, I guess my usual 12 p.m. stream is what it would have been today. So we are, in fact, doing the first ever, I think, 8 p.m. splash play here that I'm sure nobody's going to watch, but I had to get it out, had to get the takes in, and had to show up here for the sake of all you fine folks out there that do contribute to this fine community of ours. So let's get into it. Let's start it off. And yeah, I am fucking gassed, guys. I'll give you guys the full context of my sleepiness. But of course, if you're not familiar with what we do here, we're going to do our lineup build that we always do, of course, every weekend here for the DraftKings slate, the NFL DFS slate on there. In particular, the Saturday through Sunday slate is we're going to be building for. And we're going to build lineups 3 different ways. First, we're going to look at the projections and the ownership projections from Stochastic, then run the Fantasy Cruncher Optimizer to find out what the optimizer thinks are the must plays of today. Then after that, I'm going to hand build a lineup. I'm going to see what I think I could build off of based off of what that math's going to drive people towards. And then last but not least, I'm going to simulate some lineups to find out what the Sims think. And by the end of it all, we'll know what the must plays of fantasy football divisional round of the playoffs is going to be. And that's how it goes. That's how it's going to go. And check out this sweet probably ad. We're back in the mix there, of course. My sports betting startup. Check it out for yourself. Got another sign up here from the Splash Play community the other day, and I would love a ton more. So if you want to win your bets more, if you want to get better data for yourself, check it out at probably.com. Use promo code SPLASH. Save yourself 50%. It means getting all of our data, all our pregame data for under $10 a month, and all of our live in-game data for under $25 a month. And people have won 5x a yearly cost of membership. So we're talking thousands of dollars for at least one guy I know of, if not more, myself included. I've done a pretty good amount with. So check it out for yourself. Probably.com/subscribe. Late night squirting. Good evening, y'all. Got a beer. Let's go, Spags. Yes, same for me here. I do have a beer, the Crypto Ranger IPA, which I think is very sick. Any sort of New Belgium Ranger beer, I'm always willing to go with. The Juice Force, probably my favorite, but a lot of good ones for sure. Well, let's get into this slate. I got to get football things out of the way. I feel like I need to just talk to adults now because I've been in child mode today. Fucking endless child mode. Grocery store shopping to get some snacks and shoveling. And now I'm going to look at Christian McCaffrey's projection and go, this is where I belong. Christian McCaffrey, top projected player on the slate, according to Stochastic. And of course, you can get all this data, all the tools from Stochastic as well. Link in the description to save 15% of all of that for yourself. But Christian McCaffrey, top projected player, $8,800 salary here. Calf injury, maybe the one risk point, but it does feel like definitely going to see a lot of Christian McCaffrey this weekend coming up, given that lofty projection. Mon-Ra St. Brown, number 2, very high projection for him as well, 24.6, which for a Mon-Ra, I feel like might be the most he's had projected for himself all year long. So a Mon-Ra 24.6 projection, almost a 3x value for himself salary-wise at 8,200. Mon-Ra definitely looks like another certainly foundational play potentially this week. Lamar, the guy in the thumbnail, I think Lamar, the most live QB, according to the advanced analytic data, going to be a very nice match for him going against Houston, probably the best match of the weekend besides Jared Goff going against Tampa Bay. But I would say for Lamar, we know what he has. We know the upside there. Tough price tag at $7,900, so I imagine not a lot going to come up with an optimizer, but we will find out in a moment here. Josh Allen at number 4, so Lamar number 1 in terms of the projection, and then actually a 4-point drop-off, or I guess 3.6 if you want to be accurate, down to a decimal point. But Josh Allen, the number 2 projected QB on the slate. Lamar, though, a pretty big breath ahead, and Josh Allen more expensive, so that does mean right away Josh Allen facing a Chiefs defense people do have some fear for, that also analytically probably the best defense. I don't know, maybe that might not be fair. There's a lot of good defenses left, but definitely one of the best defenses that are left in the playoffs at this point. So for Josh Allen, I think an interesting contrarian play because people are going to land on Lamar a lot easier based off these projections. Jared Goff's number 5 as well. Again, he's the cheap option, basically price same as Jared Goff. So I think people will pay up to get to Lamar. I think people will pay down to get to Jared Goff. And I think Josh Allen, as a result, very interesting tournament play, especially given the fact that he has been running like a demon lately. Top values overall. I'm taking a sip of my beer. I deserve this. It's been a fucking nightmare. I love my child, but fucking 12 hours of a child while your wife is heading to Miami? No, thank you. I don't need tough combination here and 6 to 8 inches of snow that we have in the Philly area. Jared Goff, Top value on the slate, Lamar, number 2 value. I'm also doing wild hand gestures because I'm sleep deprived and also I've had a few beers. So that's where we're at. Lamar, number 2, 3.1x value. Again, that same 24.4 projection we had from Amon-Ra St. Brown, another guy, top value. So again, high projection, highest value. We're not getting one of those 3K guys who's popping up as a top value. We are getting the studs and the potential optimizer chalk of the slate as looking like the top values here. Brock Purdy, Baker Mayfield, those guys not too far behind in terms of the value metrics, but nobody here stands out as like that cheap pay down option value. Josh Reynolds would be it. So Jameson Williams, you think gains a little bit of tournament appeal to try to get off that beaten path of what the optimizer is going to give people and what the projections are going to give people. But besides that, I mean, there's nobody else. I guess Bills D is cheap, but Jameson Williams is going to be an okay value, but not as good as Josh Reynolds. I think it's the one pivot point you're going to have is people might pay down for Josh Reynolds, who also has a pretty good box score game last time out for Detroit. So I think that's where Jameson Williams, he has not paid off, as I pointed out on stream earlier in the week, but maybe this is the week he finally pays off. About 6 inches of snow in Ohio, too. You know what? I'm glad that we have similar amounts of snow. That said, I feel like Ohio should have more. I feel like we're close enough to like that mid-Atlantic region where I don't want snow. And I really just, man, anytime like dealing snow, and I haven't shoveled snow because like last winter wasn't that bad. I don't recall the last time I've like really shoveled snow. I had to shovel twice today, once to get out and then once to like make sure we can actually get it out if I have to tomorrow. And it's like, God, I hate this, man. Like, this is why I lived in LA. But we persevere. And also Luca does not seem to enjoy snow right now because it is like 25 degrees and snowy, which is not a good time for my little boy. Christian McCaffrey, top owned player projected on the slate, 42% ownership expected for him on that Saturday to Sunday slate. We actually, let me make sure that that's correct. Yeah, this is okay. This is the Saturday to Sunday. It's like, so Kasic's been like putting their slates under different things sometimes. And here's their Sunday only, here's their Saturday only. And then they have a Saturday to Monday, which I don't think is anything. So I don't know why that's there. But Amon-Ra St. Brown, number 2 projected owned player, 35% for him. Again, high salary, nice player though, highest projection or second highest projection overall at receiver. So I think a good play overall that's going to be very chalky and definitely somebody where we have chalk going for Amon-Ra and chalk going to Josh Reynolds and also apparently chalk going to Jameson Williams. So we did have Sam Laporta. I think he's questionable right now. I would expect him to go after he looked like he was fully fine last week. For this situation, he is basically the one receiver not being played. So, I mean, you could go to the running backs as well to get leverage, but when you have Amon-Ra, the number 2 owned player, Josh Reynolds, the number 3 owned player, Jameson Williams, number 4, who else can get there? It's basically Sam Laporta, the running backs, and that's it. And I guess you could play Jared Goff like without stacking these guys up, but that would be probably a fool's errand. I don't know. Playing all 3 would decrease your ownership product as well, but I don't think that's a plus EV move either. Isaiah Pacheco is the number 5 overall projected owned player, 26% for him. Low owned guys we can look at really fast before we before we optimize, then try to handle the lineup. Gus Edwards, 10%. Bucks D, 10%. I do think Bucks D, very good leverage against all this Lions ownership that I think we're going to see. Also, you don't have to play the Bucks D as like direct leverage, but it's one way to kind of attack the slate, I would think, would be to play that Bucks D, get low owned. Maybe have 1 Lion or 2 Lions as bringbacks. So that's probably also going to cut your ownership by having the defense and a couple players from the roster. And I think that would be a move that I would try to take. Robert Woods, basically going to have to get some wide receiver work, you would think, this week. I had an end zone target that he dropped last week, or I guess you could say it was an incompletion, but I think it was kind of a drop. But Robert Woods definitely has to get more reps with Noah Brown out again for this entire game. We could see Xavier Hutchinson take a leap upwards, I suppose. But Robert Woods, you would think, would be the guy at 10% ownership. If Baltimore does sell it to stop Nico Collins, it's going to be hard to stop Nico based on how he's been going and also the target share he's had and CJ Stroud's aggressiveness as well. But for Robert Woods, maybe he can steal 7-8 targets in this game. Nico gets 4 or 5, and then they don't convert in the major way. I think that's an interesting play to have with Robert Woods 10%. Josh Allen under 10% as well. Packers D, another way to get some leverage against the Niners, though that feels very thin given how bad the Packers D has been. Luke Musgrave looked really good last week. Again, got wide open on one play. I think we're going to see the best of him now that Jordan Love, Jordan Love's apex, how he's playing right now, is not lined up at any point where Musgrave has been healthy and going out there. So I think that's a very good thing for Musgrave. Obviously still a tough matchup, but Musgrave is there. Christian Watson, don't tempt me with a good time. Christian Watson at 4,200, but definitely a tough matchup for sure. Trey Palmer, is he pissed this week? Check his tweets before the game starts, but 7% owned for him and obviously did break some big plays. Xavier Hutchinson, again, I think very live as conceptual leverage, very Sklansky Bucks kind of leverage for Xavier Hutchinson, given the fact that I do think Robert Woods 10% might be a little light for him because I think people will try to get cute and play him instead of Nico. And if that's the case, like if he were, less than 10%, he's a fine play, Robert Woods. If he's over 10%, then Hutchinson is kind of fun leverage to go to at a 3K flat, 3% ownership. Nelson Aguilar has been involved enough all year that he could be a tournament play for sure. Again, a Baltimore offense that I would expect gets a lot of success against Houston's pass defense. And besides that, Trent Sherfield's had the big day lately, but a very fluky touchdown when he did have the big day. Nobody else here besides Romeo Doubs. I mean, Romeo Doubs smashed last week. Is he going to be 1% owned after doing that? I still don't think he's a good play. Would kind of expect Jaden Reed to come back up enough that Romeo Doubs can't have that 30-point ceiling. But, taking shots downfield to a Romeo Doubs instead of like a slot guy like Reed is one way to try to beat the Niners defense. So Romeo Doubs at 1% ownership, kind of interesting and probably a little more logical than everybody else here. Even Elijah Mitchell, 5,200 is not really a price point you want to have for the conceptual leverage you can get on Christian McCaffrey. All right, let's look at the optimizer here. And actually, let me make sure, because I've realized that especially for this kind of slate, we probably want to have no defensive rules about how many offensive players can go against the defense. So let's just re-optimize here to make sure we got that in. All right, so again, a lot of Lions coming up here. 100% McCaffrey, 100% Amon-Ra St. Brown. If you are a veteran of the process, I don't have to give you the spiel that I always give every video, but I have to try to make sure because people get confused by the optimizer thing. While we look to Fantasy Squatcher optimizers to tell us where the stochastic projections, which are pretty good, pretty representative of what the field's going to be playing this week, just what the math drives people to, what they're going to be playing on a given week. So it's not about what the field's exactly going to play. Obviously, an ETR sim or the ownership projections they have, where they'll have for a showdown, like, hey, it's going to be a 5-1 at this percent, a 4-2 at this percent, a 2-4 at this percent. That's the most valuable thing for you. But this, I think, gives a pretty good estimate, and we've obviously seen a lot of success with it over the course of the last couple seasons here on Splash Plays. That's the logic for that if you're not familiar. I don't know. It's a Friday night. Maybe different people watching me do an optimizer here. But Christian McCaffrey and Amon-Ra St. Brown, so they're together in all these lineups. That tells you that they'll probably be in a lot of lineups together. So to not play one would be one way to get unique. To not play both would be one way to chop away from a pretty good portion of the field. Obviously, these guys have the highest ceilings on the slate, the highest projections. And as we saw, pretty good values as well for that projection, despite these guys being some of the higher price guys. So for Christian McCaffrey and Amon-Ra St. Brown, just know that going in, that if you're not playing them, you're getting different right away. Defense is a lot of Bills D coming up 60%. Besides that, a lot of Chiefs, not a lot of Bucks, not a lot of Ravens, not a lot of Niners, not a lot of Lions. So maybe that's another way to play it that would be getting unique for the Lions would be the Lions D puts up points and then maybe the running backs. So you're not playing the wide receivers. You're going to be in a lot of lineups. I think that's definitely one thing that stands out there. QBs, Jared Goff in 84% of lineups, Lamar in 12%, Baker Mayfield in 4%. So very Jared Goff heavy lean, which as we know can be pretty risky. We've seen that in best ball tournaments where him putting up 15 points maybe didn't kill some lineups out there, but definitely didn't help you out. That's the case for Jared Goff because he doesn't run very much. So if he's not getting there with his pass catchers getting there, and that's the chalk expectation this week is that the pass catchers and Jared Goff are going to get there in concert. It does feel like Jared Goff to me. I think a play you can try to move away from pretty comfortably. Tight ends, a lot of Kittle, nothing too crazy here. Team stacks. So 23 out of 25 lineups have at least 3 Lions. So once again, Lions coming up everywhere. The thing you probably want to do right away is try to play 2 or less Lions because everybody always has a tendency to try to overstack. We've seen it literally happen in the chat before where people have chimed in and gone like, oh, I'm going to try to really stack up the Cowboys on Thanksgiving, and that's going to work out. Everybody does that. What happens? When everybody's getting at least 2 Cowboys and 1 Cowboy ends up winning because you're just getting off the beaten path, and that's the easiest way to do that. So if you are going to play multiples of Lions, get unique with it. Pair Jared Goff with David Montgomery or something. Try to get different at the pass catchers with Jared Goff. Leave Jared Goff out of the stack and just try to consolidate that production for other guys. But I think in this situation, that's sort of the main thing here is that there's going to be a lot of Lions played, correlating Lions together just naturally from the projection. So and then people are going to go out of their way to stack too. So you're going to end up running into a lot of Lions together. You probably don't want to do that. Spags, you got me feeling like it's 8 a.m. out here. I didn't know that Carlos is a West Coast guy. Very jealous of Carlos out on the West Coast then. 2 running backs for the same team viable. It's a big enough slate with the 4 games. Obviously on the Saturday slate, if you're playing just that, or the Sunday slate, you're playing just that. I think it's a little more viable. I I think there's probably enough ways to get unique that you don't have to play 2 running backs on the same team. But if you're talking the Lions, I think that is pretty good leverage because of how heavy I think these Goff stacks are going to be, and also wide receivers from Detroit without Goff as well. So I think that I have a little more validity, I think, with the 2 running backs from Detroit, both like individually as like players, but also I think the game theory of that is a little bit better. So I would be more in favor of that this week than I would in most situations, if that's what you're asking about. Besides that, good amount of 2 tight end builds, but nothing overwhelming here. We are getting Isaiah Likely in lineups. Of course, Mark Andrews was back practicing in some capacity, but not going to be a full go, so you will not be able to get in there this week. The expectation is he'll play in the championship game or the AFC championship game if they get there. A lot of 2 tight end lineups would be the one thing I would say. It's either a Amon-Ra or 2 tight ends coming up in the flex. I guess we got 1 Rachaad White here. That's one other observation, not the main observation, but definitely a good one. All right, let's keep it going here. Oh, I thought it always happens where like I run the sim and it doesn't actually take. Now we have to run it again. Spags writing the Friday night stream. We imbibing any smoke or drink or fatherly duty preventing it? No, I'm good. I'm having a drink now. I've had a couple of these cryo rangers. It actually did bring a golden monkey just in case I needed it, but I feel like I talk so much on stream that I don't actually end up drinking enough beer. So if you're with me and you're also imbibing back at home, here's a cheers to you. I'll hit that for it. But yeah, no, I'm very confident in my fatherly duties. The main thing for me is that I'm gonna have to go to bed early tonight, which sucks because I usually can't get to bed until like 12 or 1. Also, I've realized I haven't done the hand build yet. Let's do the hand build while the sim runs. Let's try to do that. Let's get the hand build in based on what I just talked about. So I think we do want to fade Lions here right away. I'm going to go for the gusto, I think. And I'm going to go Bucks D. I'm going to go Bucks D, get some takeaways against Jared Goff. But I don't think that doesn't preclude Montgomery or Gibbs from getting there. But I am going to go Gibbs here because I think Gibbs has a little bit of utility in terms of the playing from behind game script. Bucks D, again, we're going Bucks D here to really get leverage on the fact that I think that Jared Goff and Lions pass catcher is going to be really well represented. You could still probably play like an Amon-Ra. You could play a Reynolds. I wouldn't play all of them together with Bucks D, but I think trying to play against Jared Goff is something I would be comfortable with here. And look, the Bucks, I don't love, man. I think it's a really tough matchup because the Bucks D, as we've talked about, a bit of a pass funnel for sure. Definitely, better defending the run on the year. For some numbers for Tampa Bay. Just to quickly cite, of course, the advanced analytics from Sports Info Solutions. So it does a great job supplying me with the data I need to feel confident trying to do this stuff. We got Detroit's defense gives up a 0.03 EPA per dropback, 0.03 EPA per pass to opposing players. So actually a better matchup for Baker Mayfield than I think we would be getting credit for, especially given that Tampa Bay, I still have filed away. It's like, they're a team that you can kill downfield, and they have been killed downfield. The CJ Stroud game, probably the best example. But Tampa Bay only a 0.01 EPA per dropback allowed, 0.01 EPA per pass. So the Detroit defense a little bit softer. Man, I'm worried about the Bucks part of this. Playing the Bucks D. Maybe the move is to play Lions still, but play Baker Mayfield. I think that's fun. Let's go Baker Mayfield. Lions secondary as well, not particularly good. Let's see. Mike Evans, where's he going to be at? 7,200. Worry he gets a little bit seamed up because people who are hand building on DraftKings are going to see that 30th ranked DVP matchup. We'll go with Baker Mayfield. Do you want to go Godwin too? Okay, so Nate's same page here, Baker Evans. Do we want to go with the double for Baker? I mean, Baker, if he's going to make a winning lineup, I feel like has to be supplying a couple guys. If we're playing Tampa Bay, the best matchup to go against Detroit, the slot. They give up a 47% target rate to the slot, 0.2 EPA. Mike Evans and Chris Godwin targeted equally out of the slots here, which is a little bit of a surprise. But Godwin just doesn't get targeted outside nearly as often. All right, so I think we could play Godwin too. Let's do Godwin. I'm out on Rachaad White. Rachaad White has really been disappointing me in every possible format. Of course, talk about the best ball stuff on the DK Millimaker final. DFS keeps disappointing me. I had a showdown lineup on Monday that had that actually had David Moore in it, and I couldn't get there because Rachaad White at captain was such a bust. So I'm out on Rachaad White in a lot of concepts. Isn't it kind of wild that Josh Allen is the lowest over-under passing yard prop of the QBs this week? It's because they're running so much, I think, more than anything. It's clearly been a different offense with Joe Brady. So I think that's not a Josh Allen thing. It just feels like Joe Brady is maybe trying to protect the team from Josh Allen's bad side. But at a certain point, they're going to have to let him loose. So I think I would rather, them have some confidence in that, but we'll see. Do we just go like a full game stack here? Like maybe do because what won it last? I mean, not that what won it last week matters, but I feel like it was a 3-3 from the best game, if I'm remembering correctly. So I feel like we could be okay going Amon-Ra St. Brown. And I find it hard to believe Amon-Ra busts fully. Maybe Amon-Ra and Laporta no, but we have like no money left now. We are spending luxuriously on these players, and that's probably not going to be the move for me, I would think. Otten, maybe. So we're saying Baker feeds 3 guys, which is enough to justify him at QB, which is a little bit thin, but we can take it. At running back, we have to get cheap here because we really spent a lot of money. I think Justice Hill's too cheap at 4,800. I know we talked about this earlier in the week during the DFS first look here that I did for the divisional round. But I think Justice Hill too cheap in a matchup where I think that Baltimore is going to make it hard on Houston. I'm going to go Justice Hill. And then, I'm actually have to move this around, but I think I would like to put in another Baltimore player at receiver. So that feels we're threading a pretty tight needle. I like the price of Aguilar at 3,700 being direct leverage on Josh Reynolds, and we are making a bet here then that this is how Baltimore gets their touchdowns, is Aguilar and Hill, so we don't see Zay Flowers going off. We see the weird game where Baltimore puts up a lot of points. We don't have a bring back for that. I think I'm going to do that. I'm going to put Aguilar in a regular wide receiver spot, and then we'll get what we get at defense, I guess. And then at defense, we could also just go right against CJ Stroud, which is a little bit scary. We could go also Niners against Jordan Love. Who do I believe in? Man, I love that's really asking me about my favorite child kind of thing, where I love CJ Stroud. I love Jordan Love. I've been very bullish on both guys since they were getting drafted in the 180s in best ball. I think I would have to go against the 49ers more. But if the Ravens shut down Nico, like what does CJ Stroud have left? Like he's going to be forcing balls to Robert Woods, who's dust. And we do know again that like Stroud's going to drop back a lot. I'm going to go Ravens D here to close this out. So we're going to play 2 Ravens with the defense. Final team, Baker Mayfield, Jahmyr Gibbs, Justice Hill, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Nelson Aguilar, Cade Otton, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and then the Ravens D. And I guess we'd have some late swap ability if we needed it because that Tampa Bay game is going to be on Sunday. But I like that lineup. I don't know. You guys might disagree. There's a lot of ways to build lineups, especially on a short slate like this one. And of course, the fucking sim didn't go. So we're going to watch the sim, and I'm going to plug in the meantime. Guys, if you're new around here, if you don't usually watch videos on a Friday, please do subscribe down below. Please hit that like button. Of course, Splash Play normally goes Monday to Friday, 11 a.m. This week has been a tough one. Obviously, the shifting content schedule, as well as just frankly, there's been a lot going on with Luca not being in daycare. We pay for 4 days a week of daycare. This motherfucker's been out of daycare 3 days this week with Martin Luther King Day and then 2 snow days. So it has been a lot to deal with. And of course, grinding here as we always are, but Splash Play will march on, of course, throughout the offseason, fantasy football all year round. So if you just want to talk ball, we're always going to be here for you and supporting you as best we can. And of course, speaking of supporting, no better way to support this show. Obviously, you can hit that join button down below, become a VIP member here for under $5 a month. But if you go pay for Probably, that's the best way to support Spags Corp, Spags Inc. Support these endeavors here on Splash Play. So go check out Probably if you're in a legal betting state, or even if you're not and you dabble in Bovada or whatever the illegal sports book du jour is right now, Bet US, I don't know. We don't really care. We just want you to not lose money as much on betting. So check it out for yourself at probably.com. Tracking data from the winningest sports books around the world to find you the best bets every single day across every sport, NFL obviously, but across every sport, across every league. So check it out for yourself at probably.com. Use that promo code SPLASH to get all of the pregame data for under $10 a month and all of the in-game data, live in-game data, the most efficient markets in the world, as well as anything else we build, like a prize picks optimizer we have on the roadmap. All of that for under $25 for your first month. So promo code SPLASH. Splash. Splash, splash. Got Nate here giving me some emojis. I'll take it. Friday nights, man. I feel like the chat usually bumping at 11 a.m. weekday. So I really do appreciate you guys who are here at Friday at 8 a.m. or 8 p.m. rather, because I know there's better things to do. There's better TV. That's why I never like streaming in prime time. It's like if you go watch like actual professional television or like a Netflix show with your partner, or you can watch me be here looking at data and lineups. I think I know which I'd choose. So I respect anybody who actually wants to be here and hang out. Baker Mayfield is the top sim player in a 3-2 build. So my brain is now the sim, apparently, is what the moment I've been waiting for. I've become the Matrix. Baker Mayfield, Rashad White, though, James Cook, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Mike Evans, Josh Reynolds, Cade Otton, Travis Kelce, and Packers. So a different spin on what we did with the Lions stuff, where still getting Amon-Ra, but adding Josh Reynolds instead of one of the running backs like I took in. Brock Purdy's number 2, a Brock Purdy triple. Purdy, McCaffrey, Rashad White, Ayuk, Josh Reynolds, Jameson Williams, Kittle, Travis Kelce, Chiefs D. Detroit here. So again, Jared Goff can be very chalky. Jared Goff, Christian McCaffrey, Jahmyr Gibbs, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Josh Reynolds, Jameson Williams, George Kittle, Dalton Kincaid, Bills. So for whatever I may shit on the idea of overstacking, the sim is telling you to overstack. That said, you have to keep in mind that the sim is telling you to overstack. But it's interesting to see that these top lineups, QB +3, QB +3, QB +4, QB +2 is at least back in the range, but definitely encouraging overstacking, a little bit of game stacking here is what these sims are pushing towards. So maybe a little bit of value if you are running your sims is to get a little bit more QB +1s. I don't ever want to advocate for that when the sims are pushing one way, but that's one way to get different. We're all incels here, ain't got no one to Netflix to chill with. I mean, if you're on the West Coast, it's like 5:30, so that's a reasonable time. But I think that if you're here, you're cool. You're cool. If you have porn open in the other tab and you're here, it's still fine. Let's look at the overall exposures. That'd be weird, I would say, but it's still fine by me. 67% Josh Reynolds here, overall exposure. Christian McCaffrey, 57% overall. So both you guys, a lot of leverage on Josh Reynolds. The sims think that Josh Reynolds is like the god play of the week. So that's not the take that I would have expected. I would have thought, hey, let's go to Amon-Ra. But Amon-Ra is going to be chalky. People have a little bit less confidence in Josh Reynolds, I suppose. And we talked about it in the past, like Josh Reynolds has been my guy in the famously the Ships Giving shows. And I do believe that he's Jared Goff's safety blankie. So maybe that is it. Like maybe it's that Detroit's defense or Detroit's offense rather has a tough time against Tampa Bay's defense. And Jared Goff just relies on his guy, Josh Reynolds, who he's been with for now multiple years, had signed to the Lions because they need another receiver. And Josh Reynolds, he worked with well on the Rams. It's crazy though. I am a known Reynolds truther. You're correct. But there's a lot. The sims now are saying that how far we've come in just a few short years. It's a lot of Josh Reynolds. Amon-Ra, despite being chalky as well, still coming up above the field. So Josh Reynolds definitely the preferred play as a value over Amon-Ra, but still getting Amon-Ra at a high clip and Christian McCaffrey also a high clip. So the sims want you to go stars and scrubs is the main takeaway there. And then one way to build differently would be to just build that chalk, high-owned, high-dollar guy lineup with McCaffrey and Amon-Ra, and you fade Josh Reynolds, and you go to Nelson Aguilar, you go to Bateman maybe, you go to Odell if you want to spend up a little bit. But I think that's going to be one way to get different on the slate is going to be to try not to play Josh Reynolds. And I think the slate, even though it's a 4-gamer, not quite the showdown principles of like a 2-gamer or a 3-gamer, but still some, I think, enough to try to do that. And especially where we do believe, and I do believe there's going to be a lot of Lions played. I think that does make a showdown kind of approach a little more appealing because just not playing as many Lions is going to be one way to get unique immediately. As I move the mic stand a little bit, because I don't know if the audio is weird because of me being a little bit further away. But that's the kind of thing you think about after streaming for 28 minutes. Jameson Williams, Rashad White, Bills D. Nothing too crazy here. Who does it want us to get less of? Less Jaden Reed. Jaden Reed, the big bomb last week. I do kind of think that Jaden Reed, an interesting play to go to. Obviously, a tough matchup going against the Niners. Is there anything Green Bay related that makes me think that you could go there? Green Bay really defends the slot well. Just a 0.01 EPA allowed there, which would actually be the lowest out of all the playoff teams remaining. 43% rate, also a little bit low for slot targets going against that Niners defense. And Jaden Reed, primarily the slot guy. Romeo Doubs, though, playing out wide, kind of interesting. It is a softer matchup going against the Niners out wide. Actually, a positive EPA, a 0.11 EPA, excuse me, and a 31% target rate out wide, which is not bad. I think it's kind of see teams force the ball out wide and downfield a little bit more because how good the Niners defense is, but it's a soft spot to attack. So Dobbs at 1% ownership, I think, interesting, even though Jaden Reed, the ownership being so low on him too, or the sim, being so low on him, kind of makes you think Jaden Reed, I don't know. I really don't think Jordan Love can win this game, but I think if you're playing Jordan Love winning that game and then Jordan Love does win that game, I think you're really giving yourself a shot to win tournaments. So I don't think it's bad to play Jordan Love. Speaking of that, QBs that we're seeing overall, actually, I could just filter this way. That'll probably be better. So we're getting 28% Jared Goff, 23% Baker, 19% Brock, 14% Mahomes, 11% Lamar, 4% Josh Allen, 1% Stroud. So you could just play Josh Allen, Stroud, and Love and just hope that you get an upset, or a Josh Allen, again, a player that's just a little bit underprojected and a little bit overpriced, but still we know has the 40 fantasy point ceiling if he can get there. Obviously, the prop markets, as we talked about earlier, not looking the best. The team total for Buffalo also not looking fantastic. It is, honestly, it's not bad. 24 implied points for Buffalo against 21.5 for Kansas City. I think Josh Allen is like a very sneaky play here. You can play Jordan Love because nobody's going to get on him, but Josh Allen actually should win that game and nobody's going to play him. So I think Josh Allen's kind of interesting. What does the Niners run defense look like in advanced analytics? They are a negative 0.03 EPA per rush, which is not that bad, would actually be green relative to these teams. So like towards the higher end of positivity, and actually a positive EPA in the red zone, a 0.12 EPA in red zone rushes. So you could make a bet that they get the ball downfield through whoever playing out wide, whether that be Romeo Doubs, whether that be Christian Watson, who does play out wide and in the slot, and pretty decent clips for both. Dontavian Wicks, a little more slot heavy, but you could play like, hey, the Packers get the ball downfield, and then maybe Aaron Jones does run it pretty effectively and has kind of the same game script they had against Dallas, except probably I think that, Dak didn't go down limply, but they kind of went down limply until garbage time. I don't think the Niners go down limply in this game because the Packers defense is so bad. But it's possible that the Packers just have a few good possessions and then Aaron Jones gets in the end zone once or twice and can get there. I think that's what historical anomalies might be hitting at a little bit with the question. What else are we seeing here? Nothing else I think I need to really look at. Kind of see the chalk. Oh yeah, who's the most over leveraged guys according to the sim was what I was going to look at first here. Yeah, so a lot less Jaden Reed, a lot less Diggs, a lot less Zay Flowers, Lions D, Jahmyr Gibbs. So Lions D, it doesn't think is a good play. Only 1% Lions D, despite being 9% of the lineups in there. So I think Baker's interesting too. I like this slate. I think this is a very fun slate where if you do have a lean here at QB and it's not just Jared Goff plus a bunch of Lions, I think you're going to have a shot to be unique here because I think there's so many options to choose from that I don't really see the ownership concentrating besides the Jared Goff tier and maybe a little bit of Lamar from people chasing that. But I think for the most part, again, you could play Love, you could play Allen, you could play Stroud and have no ownership, or you could play some of the other QBs and have some ownership, but probably enough ways to get unique as long as you're not playing Jared Goff. So I think the main thing is going to be to not play Jared Goff this week. Speaking of, I guess I'll do my 3 takeaways here. Then we will close this one out here. Keep it short on a Friday because people do want to watch it on a Saturday morning. Before we do that, guys, please do. I'll give my 3 takeaways, but please do smash that old like button, subscribe button, comment if you're watching after the fact as well. Appreciate the support here. Of course, don't want to always stream on Friday nights, but I appreciate all you guys being here with me. Of course, extenuating circumstances here, and frankly, this is all the work I'm doing tonight. I'm not going to do the probably email. I'm tapping out. I'm going to go watch some SmackDown and fucking go to bed. My 3 takeaways are to build unique lineups on this slate. Number 1 would be, I think you have to not play Jared Goff. You have to play either, you got to find a way to get unique. So you could play Laporta. You could fade Amon-Ra St. Brown, maybe. I think that's a couple ways to get unique. You play the running backs in the Goff stack. But really the best move to me is going to be to play those 2 or less lines to get off that beaten path of what's going to be there for the people who are just pumping in the projections, getting a lot of lines naturally. You're going to get a lot of lines naturally. And I think the Sims are saying they're a good play. If you're going to follow the Sims, play Josh Reynolds as your 1 line or 1 or 2 lines. But too many lines. There's too many lines for the matchup. And the matchup is also one that people know to attack. So I think you're getting kind of a double whammy there with the ownership's going to be. Number 2 would be, you got to play one of these low-owned QBs. You are getting QBs the real ceiling and, and a low probability win outcome for sure, for Baltimore to win, for Green Bay to win, for Josh Allen to win. That's not a low probability outcome. And he also could get there in a QB +1. And in a week where a lot of people are going to be playing a lot of overstacked games, I think that maybe playing an Allen QB +1, I still wouldn't play Allen naked, but I'd say QB +1, maybe QB +2. I think that's one way to get there where he has the rushing production to happen, to have the ceiling to get there. We know Josh Allen's got 40 fantasy point upside, and he's going to be played less than 10%. It looks like based upon everything, at least the stochastic data. So that's pretty noteworthy. Even though I still will play Stroud, I'll still play Jordan Love. I think they're all valid plays too. But Baker, I like Baker. I think Baker's not high owned enough for what the opportunity is, and your way to get leverage as well. Number 3 way to get unique on the slate. I think Lions running backs. I'm looking at the screen here, and like Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery came up both under 6% on the sim. We know that, again, the Lions pass game is going to be so represented. If you don't want to play the Bucs winning outright, if you don't want to play the shootout game script between both teams, I think you just play the run game getting there for Detroit, and maybe you can play both running backs getting there. I don't think that's a crazy play given how we have seen pretty good ceilings from Gibbs and Montgomery. Obviously, the most elite ceiling for those guys is going to be when the other one doesn't get there, but they can both give you 20 to 25 points, even 18 to 25, I think, each. And that's also cutting the parlay a little bit of what you have to get right. And then I think it makes it a little bit more unique too, because I just don't think people are going to play that. So I'm comfortable playing those guys. I think they could be, 2 running backs. You play the both of them and you play one in the flex. But in general, I'm not saying to play both of them together, but they're both too low owned for what the opportunity represents, especially if you think Detroit's going to win. And I do think the most likely outcome is Detroit wins that game, even though I think there's a little bit of EV on playing the Bucs winning it. So there we go. That's everything for the slate, guys. I actually did not get to update this graphic because we have a couple of new members and a couple have dropped off from the free gift memberships here. But a shout out to all the fine folks, the Squirt Squad. If you are a paying member, you know who you are. I'm not going to do the reading of names today because it's Friday night, but I will update this and I'll do a bonus reading of names on Monday or whatever. So come back then. But thank you to the Squirt Squad. And if you want to help support the show, help it keep going on well into 2024 and beyond, please hit that join button down below. $4.99 a month. You get all my data as well as just the custom emojis, VIP badges, access to me if you want it during basketball season or in general right now, and more to come here. I think we're finally going to do some member streams this year as well. So hit that join button if you can. Good shit, Spags. Thank you, guys. Appreciate you all for being here as well. One last call for probably promo code SPLASH. Save yourself 50%. Winning at sportsbooks around the world. Blah, blah, blah. You'll win more money betting. That's the main thing I can promise you if you go to probably.com/subscribe and use our promo code SPLASH. And I'll be back with more on Monday. I can't guarantee that because we might have another fucking snow day. But as long as there isn't a snow day, I'll be back at the usual time on Monday. If there is a snow day, probably Tuesday. But we're going to be back on the normal-ish schedule next week. So my apologies for not being as reliable as I'd like to be. I think it's the most important thing you do as a content creator. But hopefully this suffices as my sacrifice to the gods. I'm just trying to be a good dad today. So appreciate all you guys for being with me. Pray for me over this fine weekend. Hope that flight from Miami gets back in a timely fashion. And I will see you guys again soon. So enjoy your weekends. If I don't take this down, I hope you do. Good luck. Bye.